Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Hausman, and I work for Strategic Communications Group. I'm going to be your host for today's webinar, which is entitled Get with the Program, How Sales and Marketing Integration Can Change Your Business. I very much appreciate everyone giving us a little bit of time today. We're going to run about 25 minutes for our presentation, giving us a few minutes at the end to address any questions or comments or thoughts that you might have. In fact, you'll see a text box, or you should see a text box on the right-hand part of your screen where you can enter any questions at any point during the presentation, and we'll cover those at the end. We're also going to be sending you an email and follow-up to today's webinar with a copy of the presentation. You'll also be able to find the presentation on the Resource Center on Modern Marketing Today, which is modernmarketingtoday.com. This is an online magazine that's published by Strategic Communications Group that covers the intersection of marketing and technology. And again, that's modernmarketingtoday.com. We'll have that presentation loaded up there within the next day or so. As I mentioned, that I'm the President and CEO of Strategic Communications Group, and we are a social media marketing consultancy that exists in a rather interesting and high-value niche, aligning content marketing, search, and social media digital promotion with helping companies achieve measurable sales goals, whether it be lead generation, lead nurturing, deal capture, sales intelligence. And one of the challenges that we've always seen working with organizations like yours is the ability for companies to truly align and integrate the activities of their sales organization and their marketing team. It's something that's been a challenge for clients of ours who are mid-market companies as well as large global brands. And so with that in mind, I thought, wow, it would be great to pull together an event, a webinar, where we invited in two expert panelists to address the issue of sales and marketing integration from different perspectives. Today, we're fortunate to have Nicole Gillen, who is the Vice President of Corporate Marketing at 3 Pillar Global. She's going to be sharing some insight from the corporate marketer's perspective. And I've known Nicole for the better part of 10 years. We actually formally started working together for the first time about 6 months ago or so, and she has done an exceptional job in crafting a program called Digital Growth Insights, not just from a marketing perspective, but truly aligning this initiative with some of the measurable outcomes that our sales team is trying to achieve. And so Nicole's going to be speaking first. Also joining us today is Marge Murphy, who is with Acadia Lead Management Services. We partner with Acadia, so they're a formal Strategic Communications Group partner. We work with them on behalf of a company called Pitney Bowes Software. And I thought of Marge as a panelist for this discussion, principally because of the work that I've seen Acadia do in two areas, both tactical outreach from a telemarketing, telesales perspective, as well as her firm's ability to help their clients truly craft very well thought, concise, and strategic sales and marketing programs that align, again, specifically content and outreach with measurable sales outcomes. So again, we've got two wonderful panelists here, Nicole and Marge. And let me start by turning the discussion over to Nicole, who is going to address a couple of different things, elements of the sales pipeline, the alignment between sales and marketing, and then finally how to be a successful marketing and sales leader. Nicole, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark, and welcome, everyone. As Mark said, my name is Nicole Gillen, and I run marketing and inside sales for 3 Pillar Global. So my contribution today, I will obviously speak as a marketer. Don't know if I'd call myself an expert marketer, but certainly someone who's spent a fair amount of time in the trenches. But as a point of reference, I have also spent a number of years in sales. So I have sat on both sides of the table. As we all know, for those of you who are marketers on the call, marketing is a function that is often directly associated with sales. How many times have someone said to you, oh, you're in marketing, what's your quota? How long have you been selling? Right? Clearly these worlds are cousins, but only in that they both touch customers and prospects. But it's that very confusion on roles, responsibilities, interactions, expectations, and outcomes that get us in trouble. So why, after all these years, are there any misalignments between marketing and sales? This isn't new. Why haven't we fixed this? If we just look for a minute at the history in the context of the pipeline, that might give us a data point. So for example, marketing used to be positioned way outside the funnel. Marketing was about brand, message, and advertising. Sales didn't view it as part of their world, and quite honestly, typically didn't even respect the work that marketing did. But a number of years ago, two things started to really change the marketing landscape, and that was internet marketing and tools like CRM and marketing automation, which brought marketing now laced throughout the funnel. And that led to a couple changes. The first is, well, now marketing and sales are right smack next to each other with no rules of the road to guide the relationship. What's more is that the expectation has been increasing that marketing has a direct impact on the demand and lead gen process. And so now marketing drives, participates, and reacts to every phase of the pipeline, and it's expected. Plus, with the digital space and the CRM tools, every activity is now trackable. So successful integration, right, the theme of this webcast, between marketing and sales across the pipeline relies on defining and executing on 4 factors. And if you skip one of these, you're going to ultimately hinder your success. The first one is expectation setting. And again, this is across the pipeline. What are the roles, responsibilities? What are your goals? What are the metrics? And who are you? Are you corporate marketing? Are you field marketing? Are you product marketing? Conceptually, what's that definition, and what does it mean in terms of what you can contribute across that pipeline? What's your processes? What's your processes for campaigns, for content, for events? What kind of SLAs do you have both within marketing and with sales? Point 3, communications. How do you communicate? What are the vehicles of communicating? How often? What's the frequency? And then last, reporting. Reporting, reporting, reporting. It is the bane of our existence, but it is critical. Okay, so I think I have control, so I can go to the next slide, perhaps? Or maybe I can't. Mark, I don't seem to know how to get to the next slide. Ah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, so I started talking a little bit about the pipeline. At the end of the day, conceptually what we need to do is we need to make sure that the collaborative value of marketing and sales is understood. Who's had the experience of being dragged by sales, kicking and screaming, into the highly reactive and, by the way, typically highly undervalued space of providing the sales team with on-demand sales support? We need pieces of collateral. We've got an RFP we have to respond to. Who can write this proposal? I need a graphic. Who can write this presentation? You know, as marketers, we're cost centers. Who wants to say, no, I can't do that? But then in a month or 3 or 6, when you have to report on how well you've done, how are you able to report on that? Where is that value that supports your goals as well as sales? Who's had the joy of arguing with your sales brethren over the role of you, your team, across that pipeline? Who has had the quarter-over-quarter challenge of convincing your management team that you do bring value to the company? So marketing has an identity crisis. Who are we? Are we strategic or are we tactical? Are we business-oriented or are we sales-oriented? Are we a short-term solution or are we the long-term bet? Are the things we do valuable to the company or are we strictly seen as that cost center? So what do we know? We know marketing is the process of creating, delivering, and communicating the value of a product or service. We know that we drive brand, message, we drive value and interaction externally across various audiences, right? So clearly with prospects and clients, but with partners, with the analyst community, with the PR community, with investors. The list goes on. And marketing defines and runs the demand gen process, and we contribute to and is a key influencer in the lead gen process. So making sure we have those clearly defined is important. So how do you get shoved into that reactive space? Well, it's typically for 2 reasons. Either expectations are misaligned, and that can happen all the way up to the CEO level, and it can also be that you haven't proactively shaped your role with sales, setting the guidelines, the processes, and making sure that again, collaboratively, you both are marching to those expectations. Now, a little bit of secret sauce, and this is again from my 10,000 years in the trenches. In the last slide, we talked about the ways marketing brings value across the pipeline. You know, the brand, the message, advertising, demand gen, lead gen, you name it, we touch it. But we're only typically credited for the new leads, for the demand gen piece. How do you change that? You build the process and metrics around the concept of marketing influence. I know some of the marketing automation tools start to touch on that, but it's even more expansive. You need to define and track where you put your money, time, and effort. As painful as it is, it's really down to a level of minutia that If you can get your arms around it, it will surprise and delight your extended team. And by that I mean sales and management. I would track it across every opportunity. I would track research you've done, collateral you created, website pages, social media, digital interaction, campaigns, events, email, you name it, track it all. By doing this, you'll provide a different context to the conversation. So now marketing is not just a demand gen function, it's now a highly integrated, highly valued part of the entire process. All right, can you guys get me into the next slide? I'm sorry, I'm in marketing, but clearly I'm unable to work PowerPoint. Okay, so the last piece is the strategy alignment. If you look at this slide, probably a little bit like the other ones, let's be frank. It seems painfully clear and common sense, right? But here's the thing. What isn't said is that most of us are not born with equal doses of these skills. Some of us are born leaders, but can't be political to save our lives. Others in marketing are creative types with a flair that's, it's fantastic. But to mix all these skills into one person is typically nearly impossible. So what do? You need to have all of these. You first obviously need to assess your own strengths and weaknesses. Are you someone that gets lost in the weeds? Are you a solid project manager? Do you like planning and strategy, but you get lost in execution? Are you creative, but don't have a political bone in your body? Once you know where you're strong, then you can look to your objectives. Can you really drive to that success? What's going to pose a personal challenge, and how can you overcome that in either your team, training, or tools? Last piece is you need to assess your culture. And obviously every culture is a little bit different. Does your culture reward politicians or results? Does your culture reward new ideas? Or is it strictly meeting the mark? Whatever it is, understanding it and weaving that into your approach is critical. And culture is often extremely underappreciated, particularly from the marketing perspective. With all this in hand, you can now, from my perspective, really solidly engage with sales. You've got your goals. You understand what's going to make you personally successful. You've mapped that into the overall pipeline, and you've built a mechanism to measure the entire contribution of marketing. So now I'm going to turn it over to Marge, who's going to talk about how to really engage from a practical sense. Marge?
Thank you, Nicole, and great points, and I want to feed right into those. And as Nicole mentioned, she spent her many years in marketing. I myself am actually an engineer by trade who has wandered into marketing over the past 15 years, and as a result, I started Acadia Lead Management Services because I truly believe that we can measure the process and the progress that we see in sales and marketing as long as we are diligent, we put a plan in place, and we keep a very strong alliance between the sales and marketing groups. And again, I wholeheartedly agree with Nicole that the dynamic of sales and marketing was drastically affected by the introduction of internet marketing and marketing automation tools. It changed the dynamic between sales and marketing drastically, requiring more communication than ever and a stronger alliance. It seems to have created what I like to call sometimes an identity crisis for both teams, and it's now vital that we redefine the roles and responsibilities and work together with the same goals and objectives in mind. Sales and marketing have to create this alliance by starting with discussions and listening sessions in which sales and marketing discuss clients, markets, value statements, competitors, and anything else that they might have in common. This creates buy-in for both teams and leads an internal collaboration and alliance. The net effect results in keeping information and communication easily flowing between sales and marketing. An added benefit to that is that collaborative culture that begins to start to come to fruition when you're working together. And if you're gaining that internally, by all means, your clients are feeling that and seeing that as well. Again, marketing, going back to what Nicole said earlier, is responsible for generating the activity and driving potential targets over to sales. Sales is then responsible for developing these potentials into clients. And in this era of internet marketing, there is such a great deal of activity that is generating this activity through multiple portals. Think about social media, email marketing, webinars, seminars, trade shows, events. All of this information is being fed into the sales pipeline, and yes, it's become extremely complex. Case in point, how many times have you heard from marketing, well, I don't know, we ran 15 marketing campaigns last quarter, but we can't measure the ROI, or we never get feedback from sales. And on the flip side, from sales, we often hear, I don't think those leads are qualified. What makes a qualified lead? I can't keep up with all of the emails that are coming in. How do I determine what's a good lead and what's a junk lead? So clearly, we've got tremendous activity and yet tremendous confusion going on. We've got to put a process in the middle that can create clarity and decrease that confusion. Again, creating an alliance and an alignment to bridge these gaps. And if you take a look at the graphic that we have in there, it's trying to show that there has to be the flow of information, keeping the process moving. And the process will move. Just thinking of a conveyor belt, it will continue to go as long as we are flowing information to and from the sales and marketing portals. Listening to each other, defining what is important is so vital in today's day and age. We have to think in advance. What are the metrics do we want to measure? At what point in the pipeline do we measure them? What's going to change through the pipeline? Very important is another clearly vital piece of information. What is a qualified lead? And that might vary according to organization, according to vertical, but define what is a qualified lead and agree upon what that is between sales and marketing. I've seen that one point kill more marketing campaigns than I can count. We don't define clearly what is a qualified lead. That immediately creates dissension between sales and marketing and begins to break down any alliance. So just to recap on this slide, the success of the alliance is based on the following key critical areas. Number one, define your target audience, define your value statements, and be very, very clear. Use sales as a great feedback loop for helping define that. They work with the client every day. They can help define those value statements. Number two, develop reports and metrics at the beginning. Think about what you want at the end and design that into the plan from the start. So kind of imagine your dashboard at the end of the day and then understand what metrics and information must be gathered in order to create that report at the end of the day. And number three, create a process that captures the information and provides sustainable feedback loop to marketing, sales, and management. The key here is that the process has to capture business intelligence for marketing and qualified contact and sales information for sales to act upon. That combination of lead qualification and business intelligence gathering paints a beautiful picture at the end of the day. All right, we can go to the next. One of the really key important pieces that I do want to highlight on this slide, and again, reiterating what I said earlier, developing your value messaging is absolutely critical. In the B2B space today, complex sales are prevalent, and many decision makers are involved in the messaging, and they may be at very different levels within an organization. There's no one decision maker. As a result, marketing is often challenged with developing several value statements for a variety of audience. And again, I will reiterate that sales can be of great value to the marketing team because they are working closely with the clients every day, and they bring a great amount of knowledge to the table. So bring them into the planning process. It really creates a fantastic engagement and is extremely valuable. Just to reiterate, we recently ran a campaign for a client, and they were breaking into a new market. They weren't 100% sure who the target was or what the value statement was going to be. So we worked with marketing to define the baseline of the campaign. Then we brought in sales to help us understand the client perspective in more detail. We then all agreed to a target audience. We began to build a very custom, focused list with titles and roles and responsibilities. We developed the value messaging, and we decided upon the data that we needed to capture. So we then took their CRM and built our list in the database, and at the same time built in a place in which we could gather the business intelligence. So we didn't only populate it with contact information for sales, but we were also populating feedback on buying habits and competition. We stuck to running weekly reports. Now, at the beginning of those reports may have not showed a great amount of detail, but every week we began to see more information. We met to review the leads, we took a look at the metrics, and we also read the non-leads. Non-leads are very important. They tell you what people don't like about you. So don't always just read the leads, make sure you read the non-leads. As a result of capturing the information, sharing and conversing on a regular basis, we were able to make adjustments to the outreach, and we are now seeing trends that have indicated we are indeed speaking to the proper audience. We have the right messaging. Marketing is gathering information on buying trends and competition, while sales is seeing new engagements and new sales are beginning to funnel into the pipeline. So take away from this case study. Number one, the campaign was a success because the prep work was a success. Don't skip the difficult job of aligning your audience and your messaging. Number two, a process was implemented and adopted by everyone, both sales and marketing. Data collection led to clear reporting, which led to tracking progress and enabling adjustments along the way. Number three, sales and marketing interaction was excellent. They communicated clearly. Sometimes they disagreed, argued, readjusted, but what a wonderful dynamic to see, because at the end of the day, the growth of and the goal of growing in a new market was achieved, and the confirmation of new sales and new business intelligence has been gathered. So it works. Stick to the plan. Create a clear value message and get everyone involved. The number of marketing tools was something that Nicole touched on earlier, and I love this graphic because it is tiny on the screen, but if you blow that thing up, you can see all of the software and all of the tools available to us today in marketing, and that landscape is scary to say the least. We have all of these tools available to us, and marketing professionals now not only need to be marketing professionals, but when I look at that, I think, oh my gosh, you have to have a degree in IT to understand how to use all of that, how to generate reports out of it, how do I do lead scoring, what do I use for my email workflow and track my website and every other thing that I need to do. So now that marketing is so involved in all of this, as Nicole mentioned earlier, they are pushing into the sales pipeline, and sales is that much more important for us to be working with as marketers. And this new dynamic has really been quite difficult for us to try to navigate. How do we go about it? How do we make sense of all of this? Now more than ever, it's critical to have a plan. We've got to work with sales. We've got to put a plan in place in order to measure mutual success for both teams. Keeping in mind that the interface with people and technology has got to be documented and clear for everyone involved. Once you align this, and Nicole mentioned this earlier, you create really fantastic reporting and visuals so that sales, marketing, and management can see progress. They see it clearly in the dashboard, and that provides clarity, and it continues to keep us focused on where we want to go. So be diligent when planning. Have a clear accounting of what tool you're going to use in your marketing automation, how that's going to work in conjunction with marketing, who will act upon any activity that's being generated, and make sure that we are reacting and responding with a clear statement in a timely manner. There are going to be distractions. Don't let this take you off your course. Build a plan in that does allow for feedback and correction. And whatever you do, don't let the technology hang you up. It's there to help, not hinder. If something is becoming too complex, sit back and realize, do we really need to be implementing this right now? Or should we just backtrack on this and really keep focused on the strategy and where we want to go? Schedule your weekly meetings and continue to keep everybody focused on the end goal. So to wrap up here pretty quickly, keep to your plan. Be clear about all activities, definitions, and strategies. It works. Stay focused. Don't get confused by the marketing landscape. Mark, back over to you.
Thanks, Marge. I appreciate it. And Nicole, thanks to you as well. We have time just for one question before we wrap everything up. And I do have a question here that's been submitted. And I will start with Nicole in looking for her response to this question. The question is, Organizations of different sizes have different marketing and sales infrastructures. Nicole, can you talk very briefly about how your best practices would apply at both a mid-sized company as well as at a large global organization?
It's an excellent question. So I think let me start with mid-size, and by mid-size what I'm assuming is you've got some delineation of duties in marketing. Maybe you've got somebody who's in charge of your digital landscape. Maybe you have someone who's running campaigns. Maybe you have somebody who's really driving content. And those kinds of roles that you've defined. With an organization like that, you've got to be vigilant in really taking on a corporate marketing position. That doesn't mean you're not going to participate throughout the life cycle of the pipeline and the sales process, but you've got to set up a structure that really gives guidelines to sales on how those interactions will take place. Because you're going to have a much smaller team, they can more quickly get pulled away from their focus if you don't have that structure in place. If you are a large organization where you're going to have a complexion of corporate marketing, field marketing, maybe even some product marketing, then you're going to have to sit down actually even more closely with sales to really first to define the field marketing goals and how that aligns to corporate marketing. That field marketing group is going to do a lot of the stuff that Marge talked about. They're going to be in the trenches with their bayonets out there slaying prospects one by one. Whereas corporate marketing is going to take a step back and really drive that activity way ahead of the funnel. But making sure there is that direct set of objectives both for marketing for the field marketing groups as well as for sales. And they, even though probably traditionally, and I know I'm getting long-winded here, so I'll wrap it up. Even though I know traditionally there's probably more conflict between corporate and field marketing, if you can set it up from day one so that they are symbiotic, then I think it can be exceedingly powerful. Sorry for running. Back to you.
No problem. We're going to have to conclude now because we are at 12 o'clock. Again, let me remind everyone that you'll be receiving an email with both the presentation as well as a link to the replay of this webinar. You'll also be able to find everything at modernmarketingtoday.com in the Resource Center. And if you do have any additional questions or would like to connect with either Nicole from 3Pillar or Marge from Acadia, you can always email me. Again, it's Mark Hausman at Strategic Communications Group, and my email address is mhausman, Hausman, at gotostrategic.com. That's all one word, GOTO strategic.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful afternoon.